Alias Dan Cooper. It was a cold and dreary day in Woodland, hardly ideal camping conditions for Logan and his younger sibling Gideon. However, the Murray brothers set out for Lewis River determined to do some fishing before the sun set in Washington on November 23, 1971. Gideon Murray was 18 and having trouble with deciding on which college to attend, so he needed a distraction from the demands he'd become accustomed to. There were few sports he didn't play, and by 14 years of age, he was already a second-degree black belt. It was rewarding and helped teach him responsibility, but the pressures of academia and extracurricular activities were enough to convince him he could use a new experience. Neither he nor his 24-year-old brother Logan had ever gone on a true camping trip. "This is what we need. Pops told me so," Logan said. Logan Murray looked out for his little brother and was quite skilled at smooth talk. He was not a brawny man, but rather a tall, lean, and muscular individual that didn't like authority and the raw. Anyone telling him to do something without tact would not receive the desired result they'd hoped for. "Respect me and I'll respect you enough to listen to you." That's Logan. It is no wonder why their father Jim encouraged his only children to seek a bit of adventure outside their comfort zone. Jim Murray was a local writer with a distaste for politics. "There in the wilderness, that's where you go to escape," he would say, followed by, "Yes, sir, mm-hmm." As nightfall closed in, the temperature dropped. Fortunately for the young men, the fire they had built was going strong and their camp was already set up. Just then a noise broke up their discussion about the plans they had for the next day. Gideon asked, "What was that?" in a shaky voice. Logan said nothing and crawled out of the tent he was in and turned on his flashlight to investigate. Gideon was quick to follow with his own flashlight, and the two left the site with reckless abandon, showing less fear than perhaps was in their best interest. "Nothing ventured, nothing gained," Gideon assured himself. Just then Logan spotted what appeared to be a wolverine. Sharp fangs, sharp claws, and eyes as sinister as a warlock hell-bent on vengeance. "Stay back, brother. Pop said these things are more vicious than the Gestapo." "What?" "No, I'm right behind you no matter what it is," said the younger brother. "Get back!" "Oh, okay," Gideon said as he stepped back just enough to see the mean creature for himself. "I'll get my gun from my knapsack," he whispered unbeknownst to Logan. Before Logan knew it, Gideon fired around into the skull of the woodland menace. "Holy crap, Gideon! Let me know before you fire a gun right past me." You killed him good, though, kid," Gideon replied. "It's all in the reflexes," with a calm but facade-like demeanor. Little did they know their adventure was to become far more exhilarating from here on out. As the two young men headed back to their camp, they felt an ominous presence there in the woods. It was as though someone or something was watching them from not far away. The Lewis River had a stronger than usual current that night and had gone from a soothing sound to a dull roar in their ears. A bear wailed at them from across the river. It was a mother bear warning them to stay on their side and away from her cubs. The young men had never seen a bear in person and they were fearful, but not overtly so. Just then a black bird attacked Logan. It pecked at his head and cawed loudly. "Damnation! Get out of here! You're messing up my hair." Gideon went from panic to laughing at the last statement. "Remind me why we're doing this?" "Oh yeah, Dad suggested it," said Logan. Logan then decided they should bed down for the night in order to awake early for the next day's agenda. Gideon agreed and was surprised his big brother wanted to get some sleep before the small hours of the morning. Before long, the sonorous snores of two men in slumber joined the other sounds of nature in the Washington landscape. At approximately 3 a.m., all that changed in a blink of an eye. A shriek filled the air and startled the Murray brothers, and they sat bolt upright like a shot. Many thoughts went through their heads as they rubbed their eyes and slowly unzipped the four-man tent their father loaned them. Reaching for their hunting rifles, they whispered to each other in unison, "This is the pits." The two crawled out of the tent, one followed by the other, but very slowly and cautiously. Back to back, they crept toward the direction of the scream, which was against the flow of the river. Just then, they caught sight of a bluish-white apparition hovering just above the ground in a tattered white gown which floated in the wind. It appeared to be the ghost of a woman that wished them to follow her. She signaled them to walk alongside her, and with fear in their hearts, they obeyed. As they approached a bend in the river, she stopped dead in her tracks and said, "Help him," as she pointed to a man taking off a parachute and shivering in his business attire. "He's cold. Bring him to your fire." As the brothers attempted to help the man, the ghost and the man alike vanished into thin air, and they awakened back inside their tent. They looked down and back up again. It was at 8:14 p.m., according to their synchronized watches, an hour and a half before they fell asleep. but they felt it was not the night of November 23rd, 1971. It was November 24th, 1971. Then Gideon felt a tapping on his shoulder. He opened his eyes to see Logan staring at him, and he said, "It is 6 in the morning, so we need to get our tackle set back up and collect more firewood." Gideon questioned, "Wait, is it 6 a.m. or 8:14 at night?" Logan told him he knew exactly what he was talking about because he had the same nightmare. The young men shared their father's ability to have the occasional psychic dream, so they felt this was an omen. They felt a real experience would play out similarly to how they dreamt it, so they decided to stay another night in order to test the theory. They knew something was to happen at 8:14 p.m. on the night of November 24th, 1971. But what and who was the mystery man? By 8:07 a.m., they had already caught breakfast, lunch, and dinner and collected enough firewood to finish out their camping trip. They ate their breakfast and put the rest of the fish in the frosty ground so it would stay cold yet not attract any unwanted attention from bears. The fire kept them warm enough, and they told stories and listened to the radio they brought along to stay entertained. Gideon had blisters on his hands from chopping the firewood, but he was actually enjoying the outdoor experience, as was his brother. A piece of driftwood floated by, and both brothers watched it. Before their very eyes, the driftwood morphed into the man they saw in their dream the night before, and he nodded at them with a silly grin on his face. Neither of them could fully comprehend what their visions were preparing them for. The man seemed at ease with nature and the inclement conditions. He seemed experienced. The boys headed off to see if they could spot the bend in the river they'd come across in their dream. Sure enough, there it was, yet no ghost or man was in sight. By lunchtime, they decided they wanted something besides fish, so armed with their rifles, each of them set off in different directions in search of a critter. Logan came back with a big black bird giggling at how Karma is a bitch, and Gideon came back with 2 rabbits holding them by the ears. There wasn't much meat on the game, but it was a victory nonetheless. Elsewhere in the country, a man is buying his ticket for Northwest Airlines flight number 305 in the afternoon hours. The flight is to be from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. The man pays for his ticket with $20 and signs his name Dan Cooper. He looks like a business executive type carrying a briefcase and is wearing mirrored sunglasses. He arouses no suspicion, and he was not searched. It was not the practice at that time to search passengers or their carry-on luggage. He sits at the back of the Boeing 727 smoking Raleigh cigarettes and requested bourbon and soda on the rocks. He seemed intelligent and sophisticated to the stewardess, and she felt he was nice. He was calm and collected. While in the air, the man hands the stewardess a sealed envelope. She initially believes he is flirting and passing notes, but his gaze does not turn from her, so she felt she must open the letter. It was a note that read along the lines of, "There is a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me." He proceeded to open the attaché case to reveal what appeared to be a homemade bomb, and was holding bare wire tips close to one another to show he could blow the plane up if need be, without alarming the other 36 passengers. There were other notes he passed to her to give to the pilots that explained his demands throughout the ordeal. His demands were met, and as instructed, the pilot lands the plane at Seattle-Tacoma Airport to allow everyone to get off the plane that he didn't need and to receive his ransom of $200,000, as well as the parachutes he would use to escape capture. The plane is refueled, and the money and parachutes are now on board. Once in the air again, he instructs the stewardess to tell the pilot where he wants to land. However, the pilot said his chosen destination was not within fuel range. He then chose Reno, Nevada as the landing destination. The plane was set to autopilot. At around 8:10 p.m. on November 24th, 1971, the pilots reported a loss in cabin pressure and realized he was going to jump and perhaps leave the bomb on board to detonate once outside the jet. This was half accurate. He would jump, but he did not leave the bomb. As if to taunt investigators, he removed his tie with the tie pin still attached and threw it on the seat after lowering the rear stairs and just before jumping. He left behind very little evidence. He made sure to get his notes back to prevent investigators from getting the break they needed. Despite forcing the pilot to keep the jet's landing gear and flaps down so that the airspeed was limited to 200 miles per hour and the safest ceiling was around 10,000 feet, the wind temperature was still below zero as he plummeted to Earth with the 2 parachutes he chose to take of the 4 demanded. He lands in the freezing waters of Lewis River, right near the banks, and lets out a scream. Woo! The scream reaches the camp where the boys are surprised to see it is 8:14 p.m., right on schedule.